Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your not so secret identity?
Yes, this is Kevin M. Connolly.
And it's so nice to have you on the show because
Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
not at all. Um, sadly, it's actually kind of interesting because I remember people asking to have you on the show a while ago. So since it's your first time on the show, I have to ask the most
Uh-huh.
basic of basic questions, which is how you got
Sure.
interested in acting.
How I got interested in acting
Yes.
overall
Yes.
was because of a girl in high school. I had a girlfriend for approximately 3 months, and she broke up with me because my I was too scared to tell my parents, and I had to take an elective my junior or my sophomore year, and so I knew she was into acting, so I thought, well, I'll get into acting. And the first day of class, I had an amazing teacher named Mrs. Fraser, and the acting bug hit me hard, and I haven't stopped since, and still doing it today.
Well, I have to say thank you for being honest with the story because not many
Sure.
people will admit that.
No,
Uh,
not at all.
I mean, I do remember really hot guy in one of my theater classes, but we were never a thing. So,
Well, it's funny because I'm actually very good friends with her now, and her husband and her family out here in LA. So it's a funny little story I like to pop up every now and then.
no, you initially started in the Texas area, though, correct?
Yes, I'm from San Antonio, Texas. Yeah.
And so a lot of people know you for your work with Funimation. How did you get involved with
Uh-huh.
that company?
That was once again for me. It was truly being in the right place at the right time. I had finished my grad work at UCLA here in California for acting, and I graduated when the actor strike happened back in 2001. So none of us could get an agent to save our lives, and so I used to work full time at a children's theater in San Antonio. But while I was at UCLA, I met a guy who his name is Vic Trevino. So some of the older fans who remember Pee Wee's Playhouse, he was the Ricardo, the world's strongest man on that show, and he was also from San Antonio, and we became good friends. And I knew he did voiceover work, and at the time, that was still a very small market to get into. So I just began reading up on it. And so when I moved back to Texas, I was in children's theater, and I was reading up and asking other people, what kind of voiceover do you do, and all this stuff. Where I ultimately then moved to Dallas to kind of advance the theater career, and I met a voice actor by the name of Bob Magruder, who was very kind to me, and had mentioned when I first met him that he did voiceover workshops, and so I thought, well, I'd like to take one sometime, and he mentioned he did them in Houston, and so after I moved to Dallas, I was doing theater, and I thought, well, I'll take a weekend to Houston. I love Houston. I've got friends there, so I called him up, and he said, well, Kevin, I've got a workshop here in Dallas in 2 weeks. Send me $100, you're in. So I did. Now, between that time of getting into the voiceover class, I met up with an old friend of mine from the children's theater, and who also wanted to get in voiceover, and we agreed to, share notes. And she, about a week after we had lunch, and right before my voiceover class, she called me up and said, Kevin, there's this company called Funimation, and I think they do English dubs on cartoons, but I'm not sure. So I just called him up. I called him up and I said, "Hi, do you just import and do subtitles, or do you do the English dubs?" And they said they do the English dubs. And I said, "Okay, do you go through a particular casting director, or is there a talent agency that you go through?" And the guy I talked to said, "No, just send us your demo, and we'll put you on the audition list." I said, "Great, I'll do that." And I hung up the phone, thinking I have no idea what goes on a demo, hoping I would discover this in the class that I had that Saturday. So I go to class, my first voiceover class ever, and there's about 12 of us there, and it was like we were in high school. It's like, "Hi, I'm Kevin. I have a theater degree and a master's in acting, but I don't know anything about voiceover."
Oh, I've had those great classes
Oh
before.
yeah, oh yeah, and then everyone else. There was a woman from a church saying, "I want to learn how to do religious audiobooks," and there's a guy who's, "I'm a record producer and I want to do voiceover." So a great little eclectic group of people. Well, about two seats down from me, this guy says, "Hi, my name is Mike McFarland. For the last 5 years, I've been a writer, director, producer, and actor for Funimation, and I'm looking to branch out." So I look over and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is the guy I need to talk to, but how do I make it not look like I'm flirting with him, you know? So, all morning we're reading different copy in this class with Bob, and, you're doing, promos and commercials and industrials. We break for lunch, and we all go separate ways for lunch, and I come back a little early, and I'm sitting out front reading my book, and suddenly I hear this voice say, so you're from San Antonio? And I look up, and it's Mike. And so we just started chatting, and I tried to be all nonchalant, saying, so you work for that Fun Times or Funimate or something? And he's like, Funimation. I said, okay. I said, yeah, I called him up. I'm hoping to learn about what to put on a demo so I can get on the audition list. And he kind of looked at me and kind of rolled his eyes, and he said, oh, yeah, the audition list. And I said, well, what's that kind of reaction for? And he said, well, the audition list is a 2-year wait. I said, well, that gives me plenty of time to figure out how to put a demo together. And he was so kind to me. He just said, you know what, Kevin, I like what you're doing. Because he heard me reading copy all morning and said, give me your contact info, and I'll bring you in for something in a couple weeks. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, he called me in for a little part on Case Closed, and kind of never stopped. And I'm very, very thankful for that day and the experiences, and I hope to get back into anime again real soon here.
Yeah.
So there's a long story for it.
No, I actually I love hearing all of the details like that, because it's nice to hear your experiences in classes, and also hear, about you calling up the company, because a lot of times there's so many people who are new to voiceover, and they don't realize they actually kind of have to essentially stick their foot in every door and like call people up and email people, and they're like,
exactly.
I don't want to be pushy, but you kind of have to.
Exactly. There is a definite level. You don't want to get annoying, because that does give a bad impression. But if I hadn't heard from him, I might have looked up. I think I hadn't heard from him, to be honest. Now that I'm remembering, in my old age, I think I hadn't heard from him, and I found his personal website, and I emailed him, just saying, hi, we met. I just wanted to talk maybe more, because anime wasn't really covered in that particular class. It's such a small market, and still is. I think after that is when he contacted me. But yeah, you have to make your voice heard, but in a very professional way. I mean, I've heard stories at Funimation where you get a lot of kind of overzealous fans saying, here's my demo where I mimic all the actors there that you use, hire me. And that's just not the way to go about it. First of all, they want original voices. You have to find out, what you can do, and they're not looking for people who can mimic. They want actors who are good storytellers and can, manipulate their voice. But yeah, you have to step up and say, hi, I'm still here. I do that here with Bang Zoom, or some other companies. I'll email, once every couple of months, saying, hey, I've cut a new demo. Here it's for your files, or do you have any auditions coming up? But never pushy. But yeah, you have to make your noise.
Definitely. I mean, I love conventions just because in the green room is kind of like my time to shine.
Yeah.
After a day of working, essentially from 7 a.m. to midnight, and everybody's partying in the green room, and they're already kind of drinking a little bit, I'm like handing out business cards and retouching base with people, being like, hey, it's been so long, tell me what you've been doing. Obviously I care, what they are doing, but it's all about making those connections.
Oh yeah, it's who it's making those network connections that you have to have, and that that you can back it up with doing good work.
Mm-hmm.
There was I've been replaced on projects, and I know I've replaced people on projects, so it's not only just making connections, but again, I remember on the Funimation website, I think it's changed a little bit now. They ask you just to send an MP3, but the first line was, we're looking for people with extensive acting experience. And I think a lot of people forget that. They think, well, I can do all these voices. That's great. But do you have the acting ability behind it? Can you take direction well, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, there's a lot of elements that you have to keep in mind there.
Well, obviously you made the move to LA, which we've seen a few voice actors, do through the years. And was that intimidating at all to finally make the jump, or?
Well, no, because, again, I did my grad work here, and my intention was to stay, actually. And the only reason I moved back to Texas at the time was because there was no acting work to be had. And it just, my full intention was to stay for 3 months in Texas and then come back, but instead I just stayed 8 years.
A little bit longer than
A little bit longer than
anticipated.
planned, you know. But again, I mean, I wouldn't have done. I did some amazing theater that I love in Dallas, and I'm obviously getting into Funimation, and then taking a break. I went back to San Antonio to teach at the college for a year, and I just felt it was time to get back to LA because my main goal is TV film. That's you know, I mean, for me, I love acting. You know, and for the last 3 years, I've been doing Shakespeare here in the summertime at an outdoor theater. But it was good to come back, you know, and making the steps to get into TV film and hopefully get back into doing more anime and video games. But the goal still is TV film to do. So I was excited to get back here.
Well, the video game market is fairly big there. It was even big in San Francisco for a while. I think
Yes.
most of it's kind of migrated, but you know, you have that tech bubble there. So
Exactly. Exactly. And actually, I think a lot is done now too in Austin. So, you know, it's starting to spread out a little bit. You know, I don't. It'll be interesting to see how things are. I think just in general in the next 20 years. You know, watching Georgia become such a huge. You know, they're about to build the largest film studio in the world, from what I understand. So it's slowly spreading out. So we'll see where things fly. And you know, the simple truth is you have to go where the work is. So who knows where I'll be in 10 to 20 years.
everybody will have their own home studio with
Oh,
like that
exactly.
vacuum sealed, you know, like.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, the video game that people definitely know you from is huge, which is League of Legends, and you got to play.
League of Legends, yeah.
Yeah, you got to play a character on that, and that must have been. I can't imagine that you knew that it was that big when you initially did it.
Well, you know, I did. That's 4 years ago now that I recorded those lines, and I mean, that was the first time I'd ever heard of the game, to be honest. And realizing now, and actually, just within the last 6 months, people are finding my website and starting to say, "Oh my gosh, you're Vlad," and I'm like, "Yeah." What does that mean? And it's like, yeah, I play him all the time, or he's like one of the most popular in the tournament circuit, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I just remember the cheesy bloodlines, you know. You know, stuff like saying, I think one of my favorite lines from him is, you know, "Go ahead, be negative, you'll be just my type." And it's like, wow, really? That's that's my Shakespearean acting and voice in video games right there. But no, it was a lot of fun. I was a little bummed. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure many people who play him know that there's a costume you can purchase, and I think he's called Bloodlord,
Mm.
and that ended up being a different voice actor. And I was really bummed. I mean, he's great. Don't get me wrong. He's got a great, wonderful, deep voice, you know, that I have now just because I'm under the weather from Comic-Con. But that it's always a little sting when you get kind of replaced, you know, that kind of thing. But no, he's a fun character. I just actually downloaded the game. I need to log on and start playing him and see if I can meet anybody and surprise them.
Well, no, I can understand that there have been some situations where they have tried very hard to get the voice actors back, and then in the most
Oh, sure.
recent years, it seems as though they've changed the way that they do voiceover since they're so big. I'm assuming that they go through a very specific, you know, talent pool or agency or something, but I could be wrong.
I'm guessing. I mean, I had got an email I remember from Bang Zoom saying that we may need you. It's still up in the air. He has a new costume, and then I didn't hear anything. So obviously they went a different direction. You know.
Mhm.
But like I said, I've replaced people too on shows. It happens. It happens. You know.
Yeah, it's the nature of the job.
It
I
is.
I know I know one character specifically. I believe it was Nasus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the voice actor actually passed on, so they did a rework for
Ah,
that character, and
that would do it.
yeah, all of the fans were pretty adamant on like, can you at least have him in one skin, you know, just to kind of honor his memory because
Right.
that meant a lot to the fans. So,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like the fans really, despite there being so little lines, obviously there's a lot of reaction sounds. I
Sure.
feel like the fans really get connected to these characters and
Oh,
feel
sure.
feel like, you know, they're a part of their team.
Yeah. Oh, and as actors too. I mean, I had a moment, you know, because I moved to LA in 2009 before Brotherhood, where I played Cain Fury on Full Metal Alchemist, started. And I just assumed they'd replace me. You know, I know he's seen a lot, but you don't hear him a lot. He would have like, you know, maybe 11 lines across 3 or 4 episodes. So I just assumed that they would find somebody else. But Mike was very generous, and he did a very cool thing where he recorded the dialogue in the timing and inflection to match the flaps, as we call, uh, and then sent them to me. And then Bang Zoom was generous enough to let me use a studio and an engineer for an hour, and I was able to play Fury once again all the way here in LA. So hope that happens more often.
Yeah, no, that is
Yeah.
super neat. I always wondered
Yeah.
for if they just flew people out to Dallas or if they did, over phone patch or whatever. But hearing it be done that way is really interesting.
Yeah, for small characters like that, the big names, you have to, they fly in because it's obviously just time wise it's needed. But no, he did that for actually I did that for Kane Fury and then also for Pell from One Piece. He is a character that appeared in a movie and then an episode, but apparently he's well loved, and Mike was able to work that out for me. And again, big thanks to both him and Bang Zoom for helping me out with that. So
Awesome, definitely.
yeah.
And for all the fans out there, we're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere because our special guest isn't. So keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.